Welcome to another episode of the Jampack Report, today for February the 12th of 2021. Of course, my name is Samuel Adams, and this is a daily gaming news podcast meant to bring you the hottest news you need to know from around the industry. Hosted on YouTube and podcast services around the world 5 days a week, it's your one-stop shop for everything you need to know. So if you enjoy the show and you like what you see, hit that subscribe button and keep coming back for more. But we have a lot to cover on today's show, including a follow-up to the CD Projekt news that broke earlier in the week about their cyber attack. On top of that, 6 Days in Fallujah is back again after a very controversial ending almost a decade ago. More than a decade ago. Wow, I'm getting old. But on top of that, we have our headline story of today's show. DICE LA is back on the battlefield. Or I should say battlefield, but you know what I mean. Senior Design Director Justin Wiebe shared on Twitter that DICE LA is back at work on the Battlefield franchise. He sent followers on a guessing game, ultimately ending up back where he began, Battlefield. It's unclear if this is supporting Battlefield 6 or if this is a new entry, but former Respawn CEO Vince Zampella took over the studio in January 2020, sharing that the team was making an, quote, original as yet unrevealed game. IGN points out that the studio could be split into two teams, one working on Battlefield and the other working on another project. First and foremost, I'm always for studios experimenting and trying new things, because without experimentation, new discoveries can't be made. There has to be some kind of innovation, there has to be some kind of exploration to continue pushing our medium forward, and I think that is potentially what's happening, at least at part, at DICE LA. The big question is, are there actually two teams? Or is this an entirely different pivot for DICE LA? What's the situation behind this year's Battlefield? Is this going to be a role that DICE LA plays to help facilitate the creation of a Battle Royale mode perhaps? Or a supplemental game mode, maybe DLC creation, something in that vein? I would love to see them given the opportunity to dive into a full Battlefield game and try something that is a little bit riskier for the franchise, but that still keeps that main core Battlefield gameplay for longtime fans like myself, because I adore Battlefield. I started playing back with Bad Company 2, and then I started playing 3, and it just kind of grew and evolved from there. And as somebody who spent a good amount of time in Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5, the two most recent games in the franchise has waned in the past couple of years. It has lost its luster for a lot of people. Not to say these games have been bad, but they haven't been able to recapture that same feeling from Battlefield 3. Even Battlefield 4, while good, did not quite have that same oomph that came with Battlefield 3. 3 was a phenomenal, perfect game. The map design was fantastic, the multiplayer balance was wonderful. I adored Battlefield 3, and I would love to see even just a full remaster of that game, but in the vein of doing something new, in the vein of pushing the franchise forward, I think it's important they do experiment and bring in new technology and try new things. For those that don't know, a new Battlefield game is going to be fully revealed later this spring, and it is set to launch later this winter, as confirmed by earnings report calls with Electronic Arts. In the world of DICE LA, though, it does seem like they are back on the Battlefield projects in at least some capacity. What that capacity is, we do not yet know. But speaking of first-person shooters, 6 Days in Fallujah is back after over 10 years with ex-Halo and Destiny devs at the helm. This game was originally announced and developed by Atomic Games back in 2009, and the game follows the events of the second Battle of Fallujah in 2004. The game was abandoned after controversies surrounding the game and its seeming glorification of one of the most gruesome battles in modern US military history. Now the former Atomic Games CEO has developed a publishing arm and has partnered with Highwire Games, a studio made of former Halo and Destiny devs, to bring the game to light. There's lots of controversy already on social media, with some defending the game's realistic and gritty approach, and others disapproving of what is yet again being seen as glorification of real events that cost hundreds of men and women their lives in battle. I'm not here to give my 2 cents on bringing war into video games, but the situation is that in Call of Duty, the events that are portrayed are completely and totally fictional. You could look to Modern Warfare, and you could say those are based on real-world events, and you would not necessarily be wrong, but that is not the direct connection here. 6 Days in Fallujah is literally a recreation of a battle that happened in 2004. That is a little bit different because there are people still alive that were there, and in fact, they're helping develop the game. They are working directly with military and veterans to recreate a very realistic approach to 6 Days in Fallujah, or I should say, the second Battle of Fallujah that took place back in 2004. So again, there's a lot of controversy on social media, and from Liana Rupert over at Game Informer, she says that she has talked, she's under NDA, but ultimately this is not the game that is being portrayed necessarily in the trailer or in the descriptions that we have out now. Other people on social media have already started to hound this game and really pound it into the ground for a glorification of violence, essentially. And we will see how the game actually fares and if it ever actually does see the light of day. But Konami was originally supposed to publish the original, and after such a huge amount of backlash, the entire project was put on ice and it never did see the light of day. But it seems the Atomic Games CEO never quite let it go, and he has gone so far as to create an entire publishing company just to make the game come to store shelves, digital, perhaps physical. We'll see how it goes, and I'll let you guys know as the development continues to evolve. Now, a follow-up story from something we talked about earlier in the week, Halo Wars. I had talked about a new position, a new job listing, that hinted that there was something entirely new coming to the Halo franchise, and I thought this potentially could be a new entry in the Halo Wars franchise. It could be something entirely different, like a Halo Reach of sorts, where it is a spin-off of the main first-person shooter series, but Microsoft has confirmed that there are no future plans for Halo Wars 2 content or even sequels. They write on the Halo Waypoint blog, quote, "We always strive to be open, honest, and transparent with our community, and we know many of you have been waiting, asking, and hoping for news about the future of Halo Wars 2. We want to acknowledge that we have heard you and make sure you know that this feedback and these topics do indeed get brought to the right folks across the studio for further evaluation. In the past, we've noted the publishing team was fully focused on MCC, the Master Chief Collection, and we had no current plans to return to Halo Wars 2. Now, with all the titles on PC, we've seen these questions popping up again, although the 343 publishing team is still working on more MCC seasonal content, along with a variety of features and further improvements. It's not always easy to be open and transparent, particularly when we expect that it's not an answer the community wants to hear, but we want to give it to you straight. 343 Industries has no current plans for further Halo Wars 2 work, including content updates, balance patches, bringing the title to other platforms, or a new game in the series. We will, however, continue to monitor the game and ensure everything is working as expected. Yes, we did use the word currently because that's the truth. As of today, there is no plan for the development team to re-engage with Halo Wars 2, and we are not working on a new game in the series at this time. But we are specifically never going to say never because, well, who knows what the future may bring. I love the fact that they are telling it how it is. There's nothing worse, whether it be in the gaming industry, the news industry, a relationship, a friendship, than giving someone the runaround. Never do that. It's never the right choice, and it will always come back and bite you in the ass. And so to be able to actually come out and say, hey guys, we're not working on this, it's not happening, you don't need to get your hopes up, that is a very bold move, and it's one that really did need to be taken. It's important to keep expectations in line, and it's important to call things as they are. So, that means that there is something else that is going to be in development, something entirely new that is not a Halo Wars game. It could be anything from a mobile entry in the franchise all the way up to something that is of a Halo Reach, or perhaps even an entirely new franchise that is a huge spin-off that could spawn the next generation of Halo. You never know what this is going to be, but it is not going to be Halo Wars 2, at least according to a new post on the Halo Waypoint blog. So following up on an earlier story in the week, CD Projekt Red hackers have reportedly started leaking their stolen data. In fact, the source code for many of the biggest CD Projekt Red games has been sold on the dark web. The source code, stolen from CD Projekt Red, has been sold online. No price was shared, but the seller received a satisfying offer, believing that the code would not be sold. So now, source code for the Witcher 3 card game spin-off Gwent has leaked online. Its file name is CD Projekt Leak No. 1, insinuating that more leaks could be on their way. CD Projekt publicly shared they would not negotiate after cyber attacks captured important company documents and source code for their largest projects, including The Witcher 3, Cyberpunk 2077, and Gwent. Really bad situation here. Of course, as I mentioned, CD Projekt Red did say publicly they would not be negotiating, they were not going to be trying to fight this, and they knew the risk that they were taking. But the story just continues to get worse and worse for the company. For those that haven't been keeping up with the situation, last year Cyberpunk 2077 released and it was riddled with bugs. It was a shell of the game that people expected, and so then CD Projekt had to deal with this refund catastrophe, really, where millions of copies were sent back, and for good reason. People weren't satisfied with the game. That's perfectly fine. That's not a problem at all, because everybody should get the game that they wanted and expected. Then you also saw the delay of the timeline for the next generation console update and future updates for the game, and now you have this, where you have this huge cyber attack that has captured a lot of their important data. The morale over there must be incredibly low, and so, as I mentioned earlier in the week, it's important to understand that while you may be frustrated with the status of a game, or you might be frustrated with how CD Projekt Red has been treating their projects, never wish ill on someone just because their project didn't live up to your expectations. Put yourself in the shoes of one of these developers. This would suck. There's no getting around that. This is a very bad situation for any business in any industry of any size. Having leaked data is just a huge blow, and so I do hope that they begin to recover. And they already have begun to recover. They did have backups of their most important data. Their IT infrastructure is back online, so it's not quite as bad as it could have been, but it's still a very rough situation. So hopefully they get everything ironed out and the damage is mitigated. But it seems that as more time goes on, more of this sensitive information is either being sold or leaked online. Not great in the slightest. At Sony, however, things are looking up because Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is coming on June 11th. I want to bring this up, and I saw this on the Sacred Symbols podcast a couple of months back, and I wanted to bring it to you all. Of course, Ratchet & Clank going commando. It's an underwear joke. There are plenty of these big jokes in the Ratchet & Clank franchise. So, do you all think, and leave it in the comment section down below, if you're on podcast, hit me up on Twitter, whatever you might be doing, at Jampack Sam, follow me. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Do you think it is a wordplay on ripped a fart? I would love to hear your thoughts. This has been in my mind lately, so I wanted to see if you all were seeing this as well. But the game does come out on June the 11th. It is a PlayStation 5 exclusive, and there is your official box art for the game. Looks very good in my opinion. Of course, you have Ratchet here with some nefarious looking creatures over here, and then you also have the mystery Lombax, whose name we do not yet know, to my knowledge. But there are two different versions of the game coming out. You are going to be seeing the standard and digital deluxe edition, and if you do want to pre-order now, you do get two fan favorites that are making their way into Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. The Carbonics armor from 2003's Ratchet & Clank Going Commando, which is now updated with high-definition materials, lighting responses, and ray-traced reflections, and players will also receive an early unlock of the Pixelizer weapon, the Retro Blaster from 2016's Ratchet & Clank Remake, also updated visually for the PS5 console. And there you have the armor from 2003's Deadlock. That is a good-looking chunk of armor, if I do say so myself. But of course, if you do want to dive in, this is a big one coming from Insomniac, and this is actually, in my mind, the first big PS5 exclusive outside of the Demon's Souls remake that came at the launch of the PlayStation 5. So it's very significant because this is a game that takes advantage of the PlayStation 5's SSD. It's one that really does make the console shine. From what I've seen, the gameplay looks very good, and a new trailer was released that essentially pieces together a couple of chunks of gameplay that have already been shown previously. Nothing new to report there. But check it out on June the 11th if you are a PlayStation 5 player, because this is one of the year's biggest exclusives coming to the platform. And finally, to round out today's show, a story that I care about in a negative way. I just... Nothing inside of me wants to do this, but Kingdom Hearts comes to PC on March the 30th. The Kingdom Hearts series is coming to PC for the first time via the Epic Games Store. The Epic Spring Showcase announced that a large selection of Kingdom Hearts games would be coming to the storefront, including Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 and 2.5 Remix, Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue, Kingdom Hearts 3, and Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory. In short, this includes the 3 mainline games, some side game spin-offs, and a rhythm game that launched back in 2020, and these games are coming to the Epic Games Store on March the 30th. Also on top of that, Axiom Verge 2 is going to be coming exclusively to the Epic Games Store, and there were a couple of other smaller mentions here. We got some new look at Oddworld Soulstorm that is going to be launching later in 2021 on PlayStation and PC, but the Epic Spring Showcase was kind of a letdown, wasn't too epic, but this was by far the most important story that was shared, and I understand that a ton of people that love the Kingdom Hearts franchise are pumped about this. I'm not one of them, just not into it. But for those that are, by all means, you can dive in on PC when the games drop in a little over a month. But that rounds out today's episode of the Jampack Report. If you enjoyed today's show, drop me a like down below and let me know what stories caught your eye. But what do you think about DICE LA working on Battlefield yet again? How do you feel about 6 Days in Fallujah? And are you going to be diving into Kingdom Hearts 3 on PC? Would love to hear what you have to say. But until next time, you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon, and peace.